So hello everyone. We're gonna be
Number one, judging with me are Kak Dimas Rizky Mulia and Kak Fadel Arumi with the team Homeless Kiddos versus SMA Negeri 1 Kupang under the motion of the the second motion. So it was a unanimous debate, and it was a great debate, but we came to a unanimous decision, and the winner for the round was the government team, Homeless Kiddos. Congratulations for the government team, and commiserations for the opposition team.
yay, congratulations and commiseration in room 1 and now room 2. Calling the chair of room 2, Einstein.
Hi, okay. So my name is Einstein. I was the chair for room 2. Judging with me was Rosa and Hilya. The motion was this house prefers to live in Erda over Earth. With team last competition, we swear, as government, and team were bad at naming teams as opposition. Might I add, very creative names. It was a unanimous decision with a very tight margin, and the winner of this round is congratulations, opposition team. We're bad at naming teams, and commiserations for last comp, we swear.
Okay, so that's that. Congratulations and commiseration for room 2. And now we're going to proceed into the draw release of grand final. If you could just give me a Okay, hello. So this is the draw for the grand final. Homeless kiddos will be in government, and we're bad at naming teams will be in opposition. Judging will be me, Kak Dimas, and Chacha. So take screenshots, pictures, whatever, right? 5 seconds as usual. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And now into the motions. Right. So everyone, welcome to the grand final round of PUSDEC 2023. In this grand final round, we are going to be debating something that we all should be responsible for as a collective humanity. It also has a lot to do with how we choose to develop moving forward. And I think it's a very fitting theme considering the competition theme also revolves around development and youth. So we're going to be debating about, ta-da! Can anyone guess? Anyone guess? Anything? Environment? Yes, correct. We are going to be debating about environment. Yay. Right, so first context. For motion 3, status quo's common investment made to combat global warming includes investment in renewable energy, reforestation, waste processing, among other things, right? So it's not limited to just this, but this is like the most common kind of investment, the most intuitive ideas when you think of investment, right? On how to combat global warming. However, climate energy technology is a technology designed to artificially alter the climate on a large scale in order to control the effects of climate change. So, cloud seeding, carbon capture, currently research at climate engineering to completely alter the climate is very limited because it's at an early stage. Okay, next. So the motion for grand final reads as follows. Number one, this House prefers environmental movement heavily prioritizing a local agenda over a global one, for example, focusing on local pollution rather than climate change. Second, this House believes that it is justified for scientists to exaggerate the consequences of climate change in their research. Last, this house as a collective international climate fund community would heavily invest in climate engineering as an alternative to status quo's way of combating global warming. Any question? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, no question. I assume the motion is pretty comprehensible. Now it's what time is it? Now it's 2:24. We're gonna start debating in no, 12:24. We're gonna start debating at 12:57, ideally. All right, best of luck, everyone. we will start debating at 1 p.m. Good luck. Okay. Opposition, are you here and complete?
Here and complete.
Okay. Are my panels here? Kaca, Kak Dimas?
Here.
Okay, all right. So, in this grand final rounds, we are going to be debating the motion. This House believes that it is justified for scientists to exaggerate the consequence of climate change in their research. Without further ado, to start the debate and simultaneously kick off this grand final round, calling Prime Minister here.
Wait, let me drink. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, audible and visible.
All right, wait, let me arrange my timer. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. There is one argument I will bring to this debate, which is why is it justified? Then before that, 3 points of framing. Firstly, it is that this House believes that motion, so it is a third-party motion. I think that you should prioritize the valid judgment panels. If side opposition wants to come in this debate saying to you that, oh, it will harm the job of scientists, I don't think it should be the main metric in this debate, since it is an actor motion. It is not an actor motion of you acting as a scientist. But secondly, what is the form of exaggeration? I think we will not fake the data that we gain, but we will exaggerate the climate harm that may occur throughout our factual data that we gain. I think the motion also states clearly only to exaggerate the consequence of climate change in the research. That it's probably the second chapter of their like research paper, let's say about the possibility of climate change based on what the data that again they will exaggerate it. Probably maybe they will say that the temperature is going to increase 40 degrees Celsius by the year of 2025, or there will be tsunami next year because the ice in Alaska is melting significantly. Well, the point of clarification I want to make here is that I think both sides have to agree that this is the scientist who's dedicated for environmental issues because because for example they are taking data about environmental concerns as well. Thirdly, our burden to you is not to prove why we can suddenly stop climate change, but at the very least, how we can increase urgency in people's life and do step by step to redeem the harm of climate change. That is why side opposition burden is so high in this debate, because they have to provide and justify knowing the condition, the bargaining power of social movements, and the social and the awareness in the society. Then our argument then. The thesis of this argument is that the current status quo is not enough and we need additional push for people or big actor in the society, such as the government, to take real action. There are 3 structural reasons. One, the current status quo is not enough in the terms of like one government who is the regulator of the state. Mostly they're lobbied by corporations, especially in developing countries, where they're mostly prioritizing their own capital or like the economic benefit. Mostly the government, this is true because the government acts in a majority-based point of view. And I think when the government is what the government is doing, the status quo is the result of how people are pushing for economic-based goals, such as more wages, more subsidies. That is why government is willing to be lobbied by corporations as long as corporations contribute to their economy. But secondly, in terms of social awareness, this has failed the status quo because of like few reasons. The one is that if the opposition wants to tell you that they can rely on social media movement, it relies on algorithms. So it is based on what the users usually prefer. In the status quo, I'm not saying that there are no people who are not aware about the environment, but the participation is very, very low, and the increase of participation in environmental movement is stagnant. This is so important because of 2 reasons. First, most algorithms rely on the preference of the users, and not all users are well aware with it. But secondly, even if it appears in your FYP, there are big incentives as to why users will just scroll it down. Why? Because they want to see social media for entertainment only. But second form of movement, let's say, it's about news. There are 2 things to know. First, all people have time to watch news like for 1 hour, but not all people also have the time to read the whole article because they're probably having many workload or have to take care of their kids. But secondly, it also relies of your people of users or like individuals' preferences again. Like mostly you have to like not all people like want to search like randomly like environmental issues on Google or searching engines. That is why the progress is stagnant. But thirdly, in terms of real life movement like rioting down the street, there are two reasons why it failed. First, people see you as an unsafe movement because when you block the street, people feel practical harm like being late to work. But secondly, it is also about the sense of security because they're afraid that you can be more radical. People are concerned about their safety, but also about their kids' safety and their loved ones. Why is this so important? Because of two things. First, most of you will be demonized by the government. The current movement is being disenfranchised from the parliament, or how it's very less likely for environmental party to run in parliament is because people demonize you of your possible radical movements. Therefore, the government will disincentivize you to put you in the part of regulation because government works on a majority basis. Then if the majority demonizes you, government will not want to work with you because that harms their social capital or like voting power. But secondly, this is so important because of the power of companies as well. I think companies have a huge incentive to demonize social movements. That means they can do media play and demonize you. Why? Because they're profit oriented, and if environmental regulations pass, it mostly gives hardships towards their production costs. With the characterization that people don't usually read the whole article, the media can just put clickbaits because they're being bribed by the corporations to demonize you, and it harms their social capital within the movement. People will trust you more. But third structural reason is also true because this passionate usage. Because I know that environmental is like rapidly like decreasing, like harming, let's say, getting decreased. But I still use like electricity when I didn't do nothing and etc. Because I will prioritize my own comfort. I don't think that it is very, very urgent. Then why is it better on the art side of the house? I think one big jump reason because the characterization of research and scientists. There are four structural reasons to note. One, because mostly research is scientifically proven. That means it is held by distinguished institutions, by professionals as well with calculations, with data measures, etc. But the most important thing is because it is not integrated with any political party. Because there are also like the part of movements that are being so concerned or like didn't trust like with the government that they were like they see like this research as an independent result of your base of your point of view. But secondly, it takes time as well. That means people are most likely valid research because the research is held for a certain period of time. Probably you take data from the inner core of the earth and they see the complexity of research. That is why you want to the people most likely to read. But thirdly, scientists are seen as genius people. They're graduates. They're seen as someone who's respectful in society. But lastly, this is the most important because the majority point of view. I think like we value science more. I think our parents value science subjects, our science degrees more. I think that like there are lots of glorification about science subjects in this current status quo. But the delta in this debate in our case is about how we can create clickbait. Why? Because because the problem is that people also don't see research in the status quo based on my characterization about how people live before. That means when you create clickbait through exaggeration, the clickbait is not just made by the media, not made by the certain part of the movement, but made by legitimate scientists. The reason why people are why is this so important? There are two reasons. First, this clickbait can attract people. Probably we can get into FYP, we can control the FYP. If we don't set opposition, you can get into FYP by splashing Van Gogh's painting. You'll be seen as irrational. At the various people are well aware, but how do people perceive it is so important, and most of it is positive outcome in our side of the house. The delta in our side of the house is when you get into FYP, probably media will try to publicize as well, and how people respond is mostly in a positive way. But secondly, we capitalize human selfish interest, which is to survive. I think one day this is viral, people will see this news. People who are busy will force themselves to read to know what is happening because it correlates with their agency of survival when tsunami is going to come next year. That means three things. Firstly, people will watch corporations because probably scientists take data from bad corporations. They would try to like watch bad corporations. But secondly, people would demand for better regulations, for example. Then lastly, grassroots movement about daily consumptions. So even though people cannot really get away from electricity, but the amount of pressure of like within the society is so severe on the art side of the house. The way is that even if inside opposition case will tell you about how this is the mechanism in status quo is already enough, then why don't you add additional push from the legitimate scientists? I think we can achieve better, like bigger bargaining power for social movement and better social awareness.
Thank you for the speech. To respond to Prime Minister calling LO, here.
Hi, am I audible and visible?
Yes, audible and feasible.
POI preference just by unmuting yourself. Yeah. But please don't spam. Yeah, okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, one. 2 points of setup under opposition side. One, rather than being exaggerating consequences of climate change of scientist research, we say it's better to use like scientific evidence that is real to raise awareness, right? Because it's true and not exaggerating at all. Even if the awareness under our side will not be as like fast as the government side, but we think at the end of the day we will achieve his cause, right? That cannot be achieved under government side. Two, what we mean by using real evidence, scientific evidence is like we will show the people about index percentage of damage that is caused by climate changes, how many animals died each day, unlike data and all, right? Because they are concrete, not like what government trying to propose, which is just basically a not real and extreme version of it, where they actually are coding it with by saying that, oh, it's real, but it's just going to happen in like a year or like two, right? But an additional mechanism under our side is to have other types of advocacy as well, like working with companies, etc. Right? Our goal is simple. We want to reach out actors with bigger power that can change the smaller actors, right? Moving to some logical fallacies under government side, right? I think all of their arguments are not providing enough contribution rather than in status quo that has already exists. You notice how even in status quo, if we are not exaggerating, we all still know that we are in trouble if we are not trying to care about the environment, right? I think the amount of harms that scientists are going to get when they are exaggerating things are just not going to be symmetrical with the effect that it causes, right? I think there's no urgency to exaggerate it anymore. Even if we need to talk about how it's going to create impact towards the society anyway, then we'll show you how then this is not the best way of creating a bigger impact, right? Moving into my arguments then, why is like for scientists to exaggerating evidence is not justified at the very first place. Before government wants to argue about how they also be using data, but just exaggerating it a little bit, we need to also define the difference between these two, right? Their exaggeration doesn't come with numbers, pieces of evidence that actually fits their data, right? If they want to talk about how in the data is written, for example, like 100 penguin dies, then that's not exaggerating anymore. That's a fact because the data already shows it, right? But then moving to my first point, then let's talk about the harms. One, people will be panicked because of the harms that are happening. The fact that they will eventually feel like their lives are in a very danger, and they will obviously have a short time period of time where living will only lead people become irrational under government side, right? Obviously, government shouldn't only talk about how people are going to be aware and eventually wanting to change their way of living into a much eco-friendly way, but government side also needs to talk about how eventually people will be scared to even go out of their houses, for example, and being paranoid of it, considering the fact that not all people have the same capacity to respond towards the harm, right? Government cannot argue that this is exactly what they want, which is people panicking in order to feel the urgency, right? Because A, if they do this and people find out that it's not entirely true, this will be backlashing the movement itself, right? But B, the moment when people panic, they are going to do irrational things, for example, like which can cause like riots and that harming the people, right? But then two, exaggerating means that it's a public fraud, right? Even if government wants to argue about how it is real, but it only happens in 3 years, but still you haven't proved it true, right? Obviously, what happens on the government side is scientists are only doing assumptions on what extreme cases that they can think of, right? Even if somehow society doesn't find that scientists are faking the data, what's very much more problematic is the fact that eventually scientists will be seen as extremists exactly because they promote the idea of saying that you are going to die next year if you keep using plastic bottles, for example. This then will going to be burdening you as a scientist exactly because their interest is not fulfilled, which is to gain followers and support and to get the support for them, exactly, right? And to still have a big public trust, right? But then second point, then let's talk about the practicality. What are we going to do on our side? Exactly because we oppose fraudulent, obviously we want to show facts, numbers, data, and all, right? I think when you are being told that 1+1 and so on is more than 2 without even knowing steps of counting it at the very first place will makes you less believing it, right? What you need is evidence of what you are saying, right? To be taught math, for example. This proves how people would trust the data more. Even data can open people's eye. But then again, please note that how exaggerating doesn't mean that they're obviously using the obvious data or like the proven data that already exists, right? If government wants to argue that not all people got the same capacity to understand data as we say, this is exactly how our mechanism would bring changes. Two benefits that we're going to provide under this. One, exactly because not all people will understand, we can say those who understand are educated people, right? This is how we are going to create changes. On our side, we could create changes or like reach out people who have power, companies, for example, or like the government who are obviously well educated people who understands the urgency through data and actually has the power to create big changes and impact towards the society. For example, like by creating regulations to not use plastic bottles in Bali, right? Does governments work at the very first place to regulate people to not use plastic bottles, not the people living there, right? Then people will going to follow the regulations because they don't want to get the punishment, right? That is better than having grassroots people to understand, because A, they don't have the power to change regulations or control the way of living in society, and B, noticing the fact that waste that exists is more like cost of a company's production and all that, and not mostly as a cause of human activities in individuality, right? But then too, under our side, we create positive discourse through these companies, people who held big power, for like CEO, for example, could change the regulation, and all people of the working there, companies will be obligated for example, not using bottles in working, right? Because they simply, under our side, you are targeting only one person, but you can make the other 100 people to get the influence that and do changes, right? But what is the likelihood though for the companies to wanting to listen to the data? I guess the likelihood for companies to listen afterwards exists exactly because they are profit oriented. Then they want to for example, one, keep producing things that still exist and will not going to vanish anyway, and to not getting judged by the society the moment when society also knows and aware that they are actually producing plastics that are harmful towards the environment, right? For example, how a company doesn't want to produce plastics anymore, but rather using other alternatives rather than they cannot sell anything the moment the plastic doesn't exist anymore. But then B, how is this going to happen only exclusively under our side then? Why, if government side wants to argue about how they are also exaggerating, they also have data and all, why is this not going to be happening under their side? If you compare data and government's mechanism, then we think it's much more professional for scientists to use numbers and presentation when asking something from companies or like from the government to create regulations, right? Obviously, companies would want to hear stuff that are more professional considering the fact that we show clear evidence, right? So by this reason, vote for side opposition.
Thank you for the speech, Elo. Next, to respond to Elo, calling Deputy Prime Minister here.
Am I audible?
Audible.
POI unmute. Chart 5. Right. Starting in, whoa, okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. I'm pretty sure that you have heard on the idea of white lies, a lie that exists and was given for a greater and safe for other people. Is it morally just or not? We say it is, because it's for the protections of people, and what is better is that our mechanism is not just full lies. Our mechanism is exaggeration. If people can normalize white lies and say it's fine, then this won't be a problem at all. 2 questions I'll ask about the principal justifications of the mechanisms, and secondly, who can give a more efficient mechanism. First class principal justifications. Firstly, they talk about, scientists should never lie about data. Firstly, this would be data that are full lies. This will be exaggerated, meaning the harms might be exaggerated. The positive condition would prove it to be more extreme than it is. But second, I get that they have the conduct to be a scientist and an obligation to tell people. But the sole reason why they're doing this is to make people aware, to make people know and realize about the issues. If people are not hearing it and not acknowledging it, then they have the incentive and capacity to do other things, as long as it has the same sole reason and incentive, which is awareness. But secondly, they talk about, they want to just state real data and it's going to be enough. There's 2 reasons also. Firstly, no, it's not enough. Exactly, we want to exaggerate it because it is not enough. No one is going to do research and read an article about index, and they want article that see and gave you the impacts and the tangible harm for that problem that created, right? But second, this is what we will exaggerate it, and this is what's going to be important. If you want to argue real data and then people will search up everything and suddenly know what is the impacts, you have to prove how society have the incentive to search up data index and figure out what is the people and tangible impacts that happens within that problem. But I'm going to give you 3 social reasons, about 3 justifications about overturn window justification. Firstly, we're trying to shift to overturn windows. We want to do this exaggeration, not because we want to make it all lies, but for us to reach at least a decent impact. The bargain here is that first you go hype, or you ask for radical stuff, you disincentivize the people, you normalize the radical things, but after that, people will instead settle down and agree with you. I want the environment to get better, but if I approach it calmly, I won't get the decent impact or even the bare minimum. We're doing certain things make people realize that this is a huge problem that everyone should take care of. When people see these exaggerated things, they'll be like, oh, this is such a big deal. It's creating massive harms. Companies will be like, oh, we need to control our weight or we will get destroyed. But second, they won't always panic all the time and be crazy just because they know. But later on, people will normalize that and calm down because they know the intention is not to scare us down. The intention is not trying to make us panic. It is to protect us, to literally for greater good. So you go radical not because you want it to be very, very radical and hurts people, but to at least have decent impact on our side of the house. But thirdly, how do you justify this when this actually gave you a good impact and have a good intention with it? It's like you banning certain companies from operations, you cutting off a certain like money from companies because all of their harms towards the environment. It may seem immoral and unjust to stop a company and let people be unemployed, but it is for a greater good. This has been a trade-off that happens within reality all of our time, and this is what we want to champion. Second clash about who can give more efficient mechanisms. I think firstly, their main mechanism is how they want to work with corporations. Okay, some of this exists in status quo, but I'm going to be very charitable. Firstly, okay, I think smoothly it only affects certain corporations, while in comparisons, us pushing this exaggeration and it pushed government and society to create change in general and not just in certain areas or certain places which will have a greater impact. The only way for you to cater for like more people and get their intentions when it's something new, it's something they have not heard before, because you just saying pollution is in Jakarta is rising, it's not going to work. No one will actually really care. But saying pollution in Jakarta will be harming Tangerang, Banten, I don't know, Bogor, will create numerous water issues and will stop daily activities for the next 10 months and traffic will be jammed, etc. This is what we want. The exaggeration is needed for people to listen and actually know the problem. But later on, I will actually concede that, okay, it's not going to be as fast as that proposition mechanisms. And this is, I think, such a winning like point for us, because firstly, they do concede that, okay, it's not going to be as fast, but they also concede environment is also very urgent, which is very contradictory, that it needs immediate help, right? If it's that urgent, it needs to be time efficient. I don't get why then they want to support something, a mechanism that won't be fast solving, but saying it is an urgent problem that needs to be solved quickly. So this is something that is going to be our winning point, because we're going to have better like in terms of time efficiency. What is the way? I think first thing in terms of irreversibility of impacts, my point is that we cannot wait and let later on impacts become worse. We need a fast one right now because the earth is truly dying. That if we didn't do anything that affect things close to now, it might be too late. We cannot wait for it to be really, really bad. We better act before it got bad. And I'll concede they're going to be slower. Exactly why it's going to happen under startup positions. But I'm going to have like few extension, right? Firstly, for far too long, the vast majority of people still hasn't really done anything for the environment. And the environment movement exists. Yeah, it's never been that efficient, I say. I've seen an improvement, but it's still not enough. Why does our mechanism solve this? Three things. Firstly, I think it creates more view. It attracts attention within an individual because it is exaggerated itself. And it's going to be probably becomes viral, right? Because it is so like, wow, oh my God, this is actually happening. Look at the scientists that protects and like to protest that we only have 5 years of living left in this earth. And then the whole like actions of deleting your email spam, whatever, to decrease the pollution, something happens between adolescents and youth, right? And this is to prove for you, panel, that this huge viral thing and things that are exaggerated is something that actually makes people do actions, make people realize, and makes people want to acknowledge the problem. But secondly, this is what will create the barbecue argument, where people talk about so much about this. They create discussion about the problem. They create so many like point of view. They have like things on Twitter, TikTok, I don't know, everywhere, and weigh the problem and later on have a better understanding and more likely to do certain actions to solve the problem that they actually analyze. But thirdly, we prevent the moment like activist fatigue or activist fatigue happens. It happens when an activist does not get the impacts they want and they actually need. They have put their blood, sweat, and tears into it and still not changing at all within the society. What usually helps to prevent is through a bold mechanism, through something that truly going to happen. Radicalism or endless motion and an exaggerated mechanism is going to help this and will actually push and actually incentivize like certain like environmental movement to actually still be sustained. But what probably happens on our side? I think there's two things. Firstly, it's either people ask for a change or just simply immediate change in terms of government regulations probably become stricter, the limitations of certain actions that harm the environment itself. But of course, because of the exaggeration that exists, people might be shocked, some regulation changing might make people disagree, but here's the thing. That's fine because people won't forever disagree. Back then in early life, people are not used to getting taxed, for example. People are not used to getting their like allowance cut off for a government and huge demonstration happening. But later on, they normalized it, and because it is for a greater good, because they see the impact and they see the effect that it's better for the future. we will take the trade-off that maybe we're not the purest individual, we're not the most truthful individuals, but at least we prove to you that we are the only individual that cares. We're the truly individual that want to have a change, and we're the individuals that will actually give you a faster mechanism that will save all of you and create a better environmental conditions. We will take the trade-off as long as impacts happen, because it is what truly matters. Proud to stand under prop.
Thank you for the speech. To respond to Deputy Prime Minister, I call upon DLO here.
Hi, am I audible?
Audible.
Okay. Wait, give me time to set up my timer. Somewhere. For POIs, would be just unmuting yourself, please. Starting my in 3, 2, 1. Two things I'm going to talk about in my speech. Firstly, on why the mechanism is inherently immoral and it's not effective anyways. And secondly, on how people will react. On the first clash then, on why this is immoral and why this is not effective anyways. Why the mechanism doesn't inherently work, in which their mechanism was for scientists to exaggerate the consequences of climate change, etc. Intuitively, I think that this was already amplified by like my previous speakers. Scientists are people were trusted to bring the data on the table, right? Factual ones at that. I think it's inherently different from their white lie analogy that BPM tried to use, because the actors are inherently different and the circumstances are also different. The fact that you are exaggerating it under side government, no matter what kind of mitigation that you try to think of, does not morally align with the most basic level of obligation that scientists must do, which is to actually deliver factual data. For whatever reasons that they tell you, we also already told you about how this is a form of public fraud under their side of the house, because if they were to share these researches, for instance, and exaggerated things, and they will directly send hooks basically under their side of the house. But practically, why is this significantly harmful? Realize that they're using this in their researches, right? As PM told you that this was going to be used in like scientific research and all those kind of things. And usually realize that researches are probably used to complement the development of other stuff. For instance, like how research on climate change would be used in building technologies that best accommodate the concerns, like I don't know, sun panels and all these kind of things, right? On their side of the house, exaggerating the consequences leads up to this gross inconsistency and gross inaccuracy of whatever research results that you have. Exactly because you decide to use these exaggerated forms of like climate change consequences under your side of the house. This is the significant harm that kind of outweighs the practical the principle one, right? Because if you were to actually use this mechanism and to implement this under your side of the house, this may trickles down to like bigger harms such as non-functioning technologies or whatnot that may harm even the lives of the people, because if there were some kind of technical difficulties that stems from the fact that you're using like inaccurate data under your side of the house, it's going to affect the people who probably at the end of the day will use these research results and will actually create all of these technology. That is inherently why it is bad, right? Because there's a potentiality that under their side of the house, this will inherently hurt people when the research results are used, as PM told you, that these are used for like studies dedicated for environmental issues and all these kind of things. But I think that even if proposition tries to argue that these exaggerations won't be so extreme because it's just an amplified version of what the fact actually is, whatever that is, I don't think that inherently works, because then the data remains very unclear. You might as well side with us, right? Because we're basically defending the same thing if that's the case. The proper comparative then under the side of the house necessarily means that you need this kind of exaggeration to kind of be big enough to make some kind of significant change and significant benefit that they glorify so much.
I think she got cut off.
Sorry.
Okay.
My other device got cut off. I'm
Yeah.
trying to reconnect.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. Is this okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. Hello.
Okay. My timer says I'm somewhere in like 250. What
Yeah,
was
you
the
can
last
like
thing
we'll
that
give you like 30 seconds. Something about you were talking about like the layers of how the research is going to be used, the manifestations of that. No, it hurts people. You can start from there.
Okay. Restarting my speech. Hold up. 250, yeah. That means I can't do maths, but okay. Restarting my speech in
We'll
three,
give you
two,
extra
one.
time. It's fine.
Okay. So how many minutes will that leave me? Because I reset my timer.
You can have like, wait, so it's almost 3 minutes. We'll give you like 4 minutes and 50-second-ish, if that's fair for everyone. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that works. All right. Restarting in three, two, one. That is why under the of the house, this is significantly harmful, right? Because there's a potentiality that this will hurt people when the research results are manifested and are used to build up technologies with gross inaccuracy. As like PM told you, that these are used for studies dedicated for environmental issues and all those kind of things. I think that even if proposition tries to argue that these exaggerations won't be super extreme, I don't think that works because then the delta remains unclear. You might as well side with us because you're basically defending the same thing, in which the proper comparative under their side of the house necessarily means that you need this kind of exaggeration be big enough to make some kind of significant change and significant benefit that they so much glorify. Plus, the motion really says exaggerate. It's not like making adjustments here and there. But answering their concerns, then, why their case is inherently not symmetrical? Realize that clickbait and all these kind of things can also still exist under our side of the house and is symmetrical under our side of the house, right? As PM pointed out, that people sometimes do not have the capacity to just sit down and read an article, and that scientists are seen as legitimate people, etc., because of their scientific background. Realize that under our side of the house, our counter mechanism was also to work with scientists, but the delta is that we're not going to super exaggerate these data as the proposition wants them to be, right? So people would still actually inherently want to buy it under our side of the house because all you need to do is put up a headline talking about scientist A says ABC and all this kind of things, and exactly because the science, the science background that people as these scientists have, then people would buy it. At the end of the day. But the tipping point here is that we actually prove to you that there is no need for this kind of exaggeration that may open up possibilities for technical errors and whatever that they cannot mitigate under their side of the house. But secondly, then we can get better push from scientists as well, as that is our counter mechanism as well. And I don't think that that's the proper comparative, right? And in which the comparative is whether or not we're using non-accurate depictions or accurate depictions, and we prefer the later ones. But second issue then on how people will react. I think that we have established at this point that people are rational enough, but why won't you get the benefits or side proposition done? Intuitively, I don't think that the exaggerated things that you have under your side of the house is something that people can inherently buy or imagine, right? Because for instance, if you say that there's a tsunami in 3 more years, then what you would do is waiting for your time to be panicked, for instance. But like additionally, as the EPM told you, these are things that cannot necessarily be imagined, right? Like tsunamis are once in a few chances. Not many people inherently experience tsunamis like directly, right? But people can directly feel the impacts of excessive heavy rain. Like for instance, that's happening in Bali, literally in the middle of summer for no reason. Rather than standing on the best case scenario, government also needs to also consider the fact that not everyone has the capacity to react calmly towards their exaggeration. But even if you want to talk about how at the end of the day people would react goodly towards this, then eventually the impact that they create under this type of house would not be as much, because since they're only creating changes for individuals, in comparison we create bigger changes by pursuing the companies more. But additionally, how will we garner more attention under our side of the house? Realize that government probably will come up here and tell you that the purpose was to show people there's urgency and that was their main premise, because like it apparently scares them. But I'd argue that in the status quo already amplifies the idea that we are in a sensitive time exposed to climate change concerns, right? And I'd argue that many people are aware of this, especially like how, for instance, in my place, we've been having heavy rain all summer, and that perpetuates a ton of concern from the local community because it was posted in like the local community Instagram, and there's people commenting, and people link that to being like a byproduct of climate change rising, for instance, or the fact that the sea is rising, are things that people can inherently directly see. And I think that just the amount of TikToks that talks about it, I think that the algorithm especially amplifies it, and like people's For You page, I got those a lot in my free time. But additionally, government bodies like the state's local government or international entities like the UN, for instance, also have their own sets of green policies, right? This is why I don't think that their pushback on like government being lobbied due to economic purposes inherently work, because it's highly mitigated in the status quo, in which like UN pushes a lot of climate issues, and local governments in Bali, for instance, push for pro-environmental policies like limiting plastic bags and all this kind of things. But crucially, realize that environment has become a voting issue as well, right? Exactly because progressive usually share the trait of also caring for the environment, in which they would want to cater to the progressive who actually care about the environment, unlike what PM told you. So they're inherently going to try to make policies that actually cater to the environment under our side of the house. That proves that status quo is highly mitigating the entire harms that you try to push under your side of the house. But this proves to you inherently that there's a reasonable amount of awareness people have, and the implication here is twofold. Firstly, on the other side of the house, people won't necessarily buy into the exaggerated form of data you promote, right? Exactly, because people can still have rationality to just research their things, and if they realize that you're giving basically not clear data, then they're not necessarily going to buy you because they're going to see you as frauds. But secondly, attention can still exist on our side of the house as well without having to dramatize things, basically. Additionally, Belle already told you about how we're going to work with companies, and you're going to unable to get that because inside government, companies would have to or would want to check the accuracy, and you don't get that kind of accuracy. For all of those reasons, you must oppose.
Okay. Thank you for the speech, DLO. Next, to respond to DLO, calling government whip here.
Am I audible?
Audible.
Okay, if I got cut off, just contact Vito and Aska. And yeah. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. I complained to Aska and Vito that it's extremely hot today in Batam, and I am currently sweating while debating this motion. If we got average Celsius temperature increased by 1 degree every 6 months, if we support the opposition side, we will end up a sauna version of the Earth, free weight loss by every minute. 2 questions then. First, when people are panicked of disinformation, even people are overreacting, for example, even scientists is lying, you will panic because you never care about the environment and realize that you should have done better all this time, right? You don't have to panic if you have been doing fine this time. You have justifying your comfortability using air conditioner because you think that it will be fine anyway, can run away from the responsibility. Secondly, sure, people are panicking. Then do people just give up and settle for less? Exactly because as what they told you, right? People will going to seek help. People are going to riot, and this is a part of democracy anyway because they want to be secure. They want your livelihood to be secure anyway. And one bigger actor, which is government, to cater to that interest, as to it provide increase in demand that we are trying to prove since the get-go, right? And at least people participate in the movement at the expense of the short-term harm, right? Why don't you just support our side? Because you can probably collaborate with more corporation and you will have more environmental regulation passed under our side of the house. So I got your opposition, but the meaning of elaboration of this harm is to why your stance is really questionable. Secondly, their counterfactual is about positive approach, which work with corporate, for example, not to mention that environmental movements still exist to advocate lots of problems. The difference is on how you deliver researches to society. And this is the delta of this debate and the failure of what we should actually debate about, right? So even we take their best that actually we can create regulation, but the step they forget to explain that why even if regulation exists, they you need people to work with that regulation. Corporation needs demand to create certain plans, for example. If they see there's no plans and no opportunity to create that plans, no profit to get, then in the end of the day, they're not going to cater to that demand, right? This must be questioned and never got response in the end of the day. Why suddenly people would accept that regulation without any of the awareness? So one integrated clash. Why scientists is the right actor? What is their responsibility and why we trigger better changes? The first thing I want to assert is that scientists is reliable to disprove why they are disprove. The scientist is reliable to disprove their arguments about why scientists is unreliable and they cannot do ABC, right? Firstly, look, they cannot just play in the scenario where exaggerating means creating fake data and unreliable data, right? Because creating fake data is easy to get cancelled if other scientists or international association cancel their researchers, meaning your reputation will fall out immediately because every researcher is based on strict rules and citation is like collecting data, right? Especially if you are controversial, no investor are going to fund your researchers ongoing. Not to say that most of researchers also do research under the umbrella of government itself because government provides specific funding for researchers that under the national prioritization, right? Secondly, even in the worst case scenario, I think the utilitarian principle is best to disprove their claims because in most of the case, within the intention can be deprioritized. I.e., recent controversial about greenwashing, right? Lots of companies are greenwashing, but majority argue it's bad. You would have to agree that it might be tokenistic to have a good image for those, but it does bring progress and trend to paperback, for example, which young people think is fashionable. So even if you need to pay for 4,000 rupiah, or the concept, people consented to buy that paperback, right? Or the concept like what Askaf mentioned about white lies in relationship. You lie when your partner cooks salty pasta because you want to motivate them so they do not give up and they think that they're still able to save the condition. And so many other examples I'm able to prove in this case that most of the case, what matters is not the intention, but the tangibility and the outcome. Kak Vinay teach me about this principle, so it's true. Like, thirdly, even that is so, right? Even the tangibility is bad. i.e. creating fake data. Check and balance will still exist anyway because majority of the discussion as we picturize to you happen in social media, which is the main feature is to be interactive to people, right? So comments, teach, and also screenshotting, etc. are going to be interactive, so open for discussion, which is why I also directly prove my arguments about why check and balance will happen. Why a bit blurs, right? Firstly, I want to assert is that scientists is credible individuals because they do not just go to college and they just do not go to their workplace for nothing. Even without providing evidence, which is not true anyway, while they just assume that we do not get any evidence under outside the house. So people still have tendency to trust them because they see them as more reliable individuals than average people, right? Even at the case of placebo effect, right? People still going to trust them and spread among Facebook groups, for example, to remind each other. So secondly, we agree that information exists in this era where information is rapidly become more accessible, but opposition need to explain what is the triggering factor for those information would be delivered to them. This is what we question, because even if information is access, for example, even if you can create reliable data, but I think that even if people think that the information is not relevant to them or don't have something to do with their livelihood in their day, they don't want to consume that, right? Then, so the only way is to be dramatically with bombastic packaging to destroy all opinion about environment is complicated in the day, right? As to why opposition also never explained to you why people will care about information under this house and the same question they give, right? Thirdly, people are scared about uncertainty, but they often give up when they are clueless what they can do to save the situation, what I can do to stop this addiction. So we need to direct people to cater to those information, because think about it, right? People will know about situation can be safe, meaning that they will going to do certain action and have incentive to research. People love something that will do with their life, for example, have something to do with their lifestyle, for example. My mom told me that in 2000, people think that it's going to be the doomsday of the earth. COVID-19, so they have to wear masks to not get infected, for example. So if you go tell people with all of the resources that humans currently have and only going to live for 5 years, for example, people are going to be scared, right? And think about it, how people will react to research, for example, what I can do to save this earth so I can live longer in this day, right? That is why people are willing to delete Gmail and download Ecosia browser to grow trees, for example. So why triggers check and balance in here today, right? It creates demands. So people know what to do and what they now what they need. For example, right? They just need supplier and some actor to fit in the demand. For example, this company, they need more store to provide paperback and etc. So I think that all of the companies, especially their strategists analysts will say like, look, like this is a good opportunity for our strategy to be more catered to what green technology, for example. So we should follow the trend. How is it going to influence society? Firstly, more incentive for scientists to research, which trigger more demand to recruit them, for example, to innovate certain technology. This is why green technology more accessible. This is a flip of their fake characterization about unemployment, because they themselves admit that green technology already accessible, then it is not something prestigious, right? So even if they have to reduce their profit, at least they change their economic model, because sooner or later, if they do not follow the progressivity of society, they're going to left out, right? Anyway, they're going to bankrupt because their business model is traditional and conservative. I do not follow that in of day, but even of my defend more profit under their side is useless because they never prove why that profit is going to use to gain profit only, not for changes. So harm developing countries even more under their side of the house, and they never engage in any of our mechanism. So for homeless kiddo.
Thank you for the speech, Government Whip. Next, to respond to Government Whip, calling Opposition Whip here.
Just give me around like quite a minute. Thank you. Okay, Phil, I just like verbal try to give you one if possible. Just quick disclaimer, everything that I said is just like for the sake of competitive debating. Please just don't take it personal. Okay, wait, setting up my personal timer first. Okay, going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Even if we all concede the fact that Jakarta is that hot until my mom don't even let me to go out with short pants anymore because she's afraid that I'll get burned, I think people already like getting the recognition, getting like the awareness of how bad climate change is, about how urgent it is in the very first place, right? You don't need to actually getting exaggerating anymore, because exactly people already like getting and feeling the real effect of climate change. That's why yours of the house could not even reach that. They need to answer about why then people do not trust them anymore. Like why then it's so okay if like these people, these scientists like losing followers, or like people don't trust them anymore by the time that they are being cancelled out by society. I think what we want is all the clear and simple. We want to protect the good reputations that the environment, that the environment movement already have to begin with. If you're like sabotaging this research, i.e. like triggering people with extreme images, or like making an extreme headlines, this will be backlashing the scientists and the social movement itself. Government cannot argue or like set a fiat about that people wouldn't find out about whether it's true or not. Like creating fake clickbait and whatnot, because it will not be effective anyway. Two important principles that only exclusive on the opposite side of the house. There. First, we create transparency between the scientists and society. It is of course urgently needed, because in order for you to gain people's trust for your research anyway, at the end of the day, so that people will pay attention more and got the incentivization to actually find out more about your research, right? If transparency do not exist under the rest of the house, there is still say society will not trust these people anymore. But then secondly, we reach more scale of people, because exactly we're like targeting people with power like companies, because they are the stakeholders that create biggest mess towards the environment, right? They have the power to change the regulations so that the lower level people don't have any choice but to do it the moment the regulation is being changed at the end of the day, right? Before moving to clash framing, why then there's not the house or this loses the debate, right? First, they told you about how people do not want to read news and article. First, look on how their PMs are backlashing. The fact that they give you characterization about how people are lazy to read article, proving that their benefits will not fly under the certain house, because exactly what they do is just like creating extreme articles and etc. But then second, if proposition review about how that is going to incentivize them by triggering them, I think yes, maybe in the very first place, people will get attracted to read your article, your clickbait, your fake clickbait and headlines. This will become viral, and people will have the incentivization to read that. But realize this is dangerous to begin with, because why? Look, the moment you have more people in your scale to read your exaggerating headlines, meaning that it puts more risk towards this proposal, right? More people are going to read your article. People got the knowing the fact that people in the status quo got the rationality anyway. You cannot assume that people are that dumb to believe what you write in your headlines, right? Because people clearly knows and got the rationality to differentiate whether or not it's exaggerating, right? The moment they found out that it's not entirely true, people will not believe anymore for your like future researchers and that you do. People, it's very hard to actually gaining their trust anymore. And then thirdly, later, realize that the moment you create riots, the moment people feel the panic, Albert cannot argue about how it's like the sense of survivability of the people and the part of democracy, because exactly you cannot control these people's action, what they're doing to do anyway. People tend to be radical because they do be acting irrational the moment they get panic. They don't have they will be acting irrational. You cannot control this. But then second, they told you how that under a certain house or mechanism only affect a certain companies, and so that it will not be affected. First, this is not true, because we are targeting big stakeholders that help power. They're the one who should be responsible for all the method, or they already have. Right? Look on how the status quo, like there's like companies that change their products into eco-friendly to actually gain market segmentations from society. Right? This proves to you on how that the companies also got the incentivization to actually want to maintain a good reputation at the end of the day. Right? Then secondly, notice even if companies are that profit oriented, until they don't want to change their products into eco-friendly because of the production cost is very high, I think they will still want to follow the demand coming from the city, right? In order for them to maintain their segmentations. I think at the end of the day, people will have no choice if like the product that is supply that is like if the product that exists in the status quo is become all eco-friendly. I think that people don't have any choice rather than using them, right? Look on how Starbucks use paper straw nowadays, so that the consumers do not have any choice rather than buying stainless straw if you don't want your coffee to taste like paper, right? At the end of the day, so that's why under certain house companies will still have like the incentivization to actually change the regulation at the end of the day before Clash Royale.
You cannot just state that people are this and that just because of example without providing structural reasons. Even if that's true that people are well aware, then why do you still work with corporation government? But that also means when scientists get cut off exaggeration, people who support scientists because people are well aware, your characterization kills your harm. Even if there's rioting is a part of democracy, and the expense of short-term panic harm, the long-term is again more regulation, more collaboration with corporations, not just Starbucks, but more corporations.
I think at the end of the day, your side of the house will be just like harming a lot of people because exactly just like pushing them to actually believe what you write in those extreme headlines. I'm gonna explain about that in my class later. But principally, why then which side that could pushes people to care for the sake of environment even more? First, they told you about how we are lacking of awareness in status quo. Look on how check and balances are they exist between like the progressive people and the conservative people, right? Like if you're being problematic in social media or saying that something dumb, people will still cancel you out and argue to you about the right thing, right? They cannot talk to you about how social media is not effective because I think both sides needs to consider that social media got a big part in the social movement because of its accessibilities, right? If they told you about how the social media is not effective, highly questionable under their side of the house about how that under their side of the house they're going to reach a lot of people. But that's look at how status quo where scientists already gave an extreme headline, like for example, like Kiamat will happen tomorrow if we don't save our Earth, like we all going to Mars if we don't stop littering. Look at how people only take it as a joke, make it as a meme. For example, they don't even care. They don't exactly because like they're like of how they don't even care about the environment at the end of the day, right? But thirdly, we already told you about in our previous speaker that the awareness in the status quo is also sufficient enough and it's growing. This is likely because the majority of people in the status quo are the young people who are progressive and care about the environment. So there's voting issues and there's like regulations coming from entitles like UN and the local government to mitigate environmental damages. For instance, shows that there is like existing check and balances. Exactly because people will be more likely to engage with something that have directly hurt them and etc. But that's the second point. They told you about how then fast progress will happen under your center health. First, their premise was basically that this was going to scare people, so it's good because now people will move faster. Realize that this is kind of untrue because they can't guarantee as to how people will inherently react under their set of house, especially when you are scared that you are most likely irrational at the end of the day, right? I think the tipping point in this class is simple. First, we went on the utilitarian principle because inherently, because we still have like people to actually trust us, and second, we affect this company to actually incentivize them to actually change their regulations prior to win as opposition.
Thank you for the speech. Next, to start the closing of this debate, I call upon the reply speaker of the opposition team. Here.
Starting in 3, 2, 1. Assuming how I tell you that we could die in the time of air pollution when going out, what happens obviously is us getting scared and feels like a total dead meat that could die anytime, right? Two things I'm going to talk about in this reply speech. Framing and areas of issues. First of all, let's talk about framing, right? One, I think besides government proposing exaggeration, their side is also being exaggerating when defining how this article looks like. Even without telling anyone right now, doing either both sides mechanism, people still knows that we are in a global warming issues, right? Then there's no urgency for us to even exaggerate to persuade others in the first place. But why is not justified anyway, right? We told you how the risk the scientists put the moment when they are exaggerating is not compared with the effects they're getting, right? But then two, I think they haven't made clear the parameter of exaggerating since the first place. Even if they don't want to be that extreme as how we assume, then their effect that they stated to cause is not that significant at all, might as well just standing on our side, right? But then three, also government's response towards our mechanism is practically only the fact that it can also be done on their side, but no exclusivity as how this is much more harmful than their mechanism, right? In comparison, we told you how even actually exaggerating will going to be much harmful towards the scientists, where people will lose trust to them, and eventually their scientists losing their jobs because they are not mentally stable, because they are being protest and having no one to tell you the fact of environment happening right now, right? But then moving on to areas of issues, then individuals versus companies. I think this is the biggest concern, biggest question that we need to talk about, right? Which side eventually solve the problem faster? What did they tell you? One, they talk about how they're going to persuade individuals more by using social media and by exaggerating. Somehow it is easier in the social media to be in the social media's algorithm, right? I think this is not exclusive anyways, as our site could also be using social media as a platform for spreading climate changes, data and stuff, right? But we told you how we champion more under this question, since we are also targeting the corporations and like actors with bigger powers, right? Two, we told you then how it is still being way, even if it's not all, even if not all people are able to understand data, even like if even if the likelihood is small, right? But it's still fine anyway, because exactly what to do is like a more professional way, so eventually companies would want to see us. How did they respond to this? They told you how companies will not want to listen to us because it doesn't benefit them. Judges don't buy this argument, since obviously the very first place we already cater this problem, right? We told you about how companies will likely want to listen and change exactly because it is related to their productions. For example, how they will not want to produce stuffs that are non-recyclable, right? Eventually they will also going to create bigger impact to society the moment when companies tell their workers, for example, to use more eco-friendly products, or the moment when government finally creating regulations to not use plastic anymore. But then moving on to the justification level, right? On the principally oppositions basically tells you that it's okay because it's this house believes that, and we don't have to care about the scientists, but we don't think it's simple as that, right? Because that's just dismissive. We told you that this is morally unjustified because the most basic level of obligation scientists should do is to give factual information that are accurate and not exaggerated, even if the exaggeration is apparently not that bad as they push so much. So principally they fall. But then more importantly, then practically the things the scientists do under their side, which is exaggerating researches items, opens up potential to bigger harms like gross inaccuracy, etc. Where like when researchers are used to build technologies, for instance, SPM recognized and realized exactly because these results stem from the exaggerating data, this can cause detrimental harm to the people later who uses these technologies, for instance, right? What all of this analysis proves to you is the fact that government being unclear towards both practical and principle way, right? So by those reasons, you should vote for side opposition.
Thank you for the speech. Next, I call upon government reply to close this debate and this grand final round. Time and place is yours. Here.
Am I audible?
Audible.
Thanks. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The reason why I'm very encouraged and I want to do more action in terms of debating is because my coach told me that I suck. My coach told me that I was dumb and I didn't do anything to actually prove that I am a good debater. And that's why I'm here right now, proving myself to him, right? And that's the only way that he can actually incentivize me to do more and to actually let me know what is the problem that exists within myself. Here's a few things that's why opposition has lost debate. 5 things. First, they misunderstood clickbait exists also under side opposition. I don't know if you know what clickbait means. It means exaggerating news. If that also happens under side opposition, well, thanks for supporting SDLO. Second, they did not repeat our main principle point about this isn't about people trying to lie to others. It's about we are trying to get a decent impact, or at least we can make people knowledgeable about this and do something. If people are knowledgeable and didn't do anything, it's a wash. That's what happens under side opposition. But thirdly, what's funny coming from opposition is they say, oh, people are so progressive, people are so great, people are so caring. They prove of mechanisms and propose to us, which they only want to cater to companies because they think an individual is not going to work. If they're so great, it's going to work anyway. This is what contradictory coming from opposition. But fourthly, the biggest thing opposition never answer is when we literally told you normal data and things like that will actually be undermined. That's those things did not work exactly why we want to exaggerate it. They just say, oh no, people will still believe with no analysis at all. Lastly, dollar alternatives have no likelihood when they concede it's going to be slower. If they were that urgent and you're going to do so many things but concede you will be slower, no proof is going to be sustainable. Your whole case is a wash. First class justifications. First, about truth and transparency, blah, blah, blah. Two things. First, I get that they have conduct. I get that they have obligation to tell people. But the sole reason they're doing this is to make people aware, to make people know and realize the issue and make a change into actions. If people are not hearing it and not acknowledging it and undermining everything based on true data, then the incentive and capacity for scientists to do other things, as long as it has the same sole reasons, which is awareness, still is justified. But second, if later on they actually find out it's not that bad or it's not as bad, at least they're already like seeing the effects or the impacts of scientist exaggeration, that the scientist exaggeration works so much to incentivize us that that's why they're still going to trust a party who truly cares about them. That's also mean when scientists get caught exaggerating people, people will still support scientists. But second, what people are already changing, look at UN, look at value, whatever. This only give a good progressive government. Some are not as progressive at the other. And our point we want to champion is that people that won't change and people that think, oh, it's just that, oh, it's undermining the problem. Because if people are so progressive, it doesn't matter. Under both sides, it's going to be the same. It's symmetrical. But second, they never really see the true reality. Somewhere else, the government don't care that people are cutting trees and like burning somewhere in a place. Just because it's there in Bali does not mean it's everyone. Don't be idealists. But lastly, they talk about, oh, people are already knowing of climate change and people are very, very caring, right? First, if people already know, but they did not do anything, it's a wash. If people understand about it, we should have seen so many action right now. I don't know where you live. It's not in this world, I guess. But second, even if they know, at best, they are still undermining it and the action is not enough. That's why we have to exaggerate it to make people do more significant changes. Please do engage short pace. But lastly, about efficiency. First, about people won't act calm. Let's just be charitable and agree when people won't be calm. Yes, they won't be. They will be shocked. They'll be scared. At least, but this is what pushed people to change. This is what pushed people to do something because you're not going to do anything when nothing is actually going to hurt you. We already told you then where people are not calm, it's when they are incentivized to change, to push government to do something. And this is when we cater and make people actually acknowledging it. But second, about move on and about the mechanism of corporations not prioritizing individual, three reasons why it's problematic. First, this is hard in terms of incentive because who's going to do this? What are the likelihood? Second, but also this impact probably corporation and companies right look at the body shop who's eco-friendly. But if people are not aware, then there won't be much like support from corporation to see like how many people that does not use environmentally friendly products because they think it's too expensive. It doesn't matter in the environment. That is why the mechanism does not fly. But lastly, with functioning technology, I just don't think then we giving you more and more data that's more exaggerated, suddenly non-functioning technology can happen because we just think technology will even be greater because of the more push for them to develop more developed technology. We say it's totally fine. It's not going to happen. We may not be the most truthful individual. At least we give you the decent impact and a faster impact, and that's enough for us to win this debate. Proud to propose.
Thank you everyone for the speech. Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you also government reply for the speech. Anyway, so that concludes the end of this grand final round. Thank you. And I guess we're gonna have like a brief 15 minutes break for us to submit the ballot and like prepare the presentation for the announcement. Thank you everyone, and you may virtually shake hands with each other, go to the toilet, whatnot, like take a break. All right, and thank you.
So please, keep your spirit because there are still many journeys out there in the future waiting for you. And before we announce the winner, we have some special performances from our school band, Larsen Sil Band, and an interesting monologue by Lazar Dipija from our school theater club, Teapus.
That's all from us. Thank you.
Semalam, aku bermimpi sesuatu. Awan berkumpul di atasku dengan jutaan embun melayang-layang di hadapanku. Aku berbicara pada ibu dengan untayan kata-kata. Tapi, ibu membalasnya dengan butiran air mata. Aku berkata, ada apa? Tapi ibu membalasnya dengan senyuman dan gelengan kepala. Lalu aku beranjak menuju beranda, menuju sebuah dunia tanpa suara. Dan kau tahu apa? Di sana hanya ada hati dan telinga, hingga aku bisa bicara apa saja dan merasa didengar dengan seksama. Tapi syaratnya, aku harus baik berpura-pura. Di sana tidak banyak manusia, hanya ada aku, ayahku, pasanganku, sahabatku, orang-orang yang baik kepadaku, semuanya menjadi satu dan bergembira di dalam kepalaku. Pagi ini angin membawa kabar berita. Tapi aku belum siap terluka. Jadi aku pikir lebih baik untuk membelikan telinga. Oh lihat, burung-burung berterbangan di langit utara. Menurutmu, apakah pagi ini mereka sudah memiliki rencana? Jika aku bisa bicara pada mereka, akan kutanya di mana mereka menyimpan harapan mereka. Oh dengar, rintik hujan mulai menyenangkan dan semesta. Ayo diriku, jangan sampai ketinggalan satu pun nada. Banyak puisi lahir dari alunannya, banyak elegi lahir dari auranya. Kamu bisa menjadi salah satu penciptanya, atau hanya sekedar menikmatinya dengan pulsa dada. Terlebih, lihatlah, dunia mengarahkan pisau tepat di belakang kita. Paragraf ini tentang cinta, tapi semesta lupa memberitahu aturan permainan. Siap! Waktu terlalu keras kepala untuk diajak berputar ke arah sebaliknya. Hingga pada akhirnya aku hanya bisa menerima dan menerima untuk setiap hantaman yang tak terduga. Tapi tunggu, rasa aku mulai bisa menikmatinya. Karena setiap inci luka yang tercipta akan membantu proses keluarnya siapapun manusia. Dan memiliki siap adalah impianku untuk terbang dari nyeri yang tak pernah ada habisnya. Tapi konsekuensinya, aku tak akan lagi memiliki usia. Lalu aku melihat cermin mulai memudar, kesakitan mulai menjalar, syarafku keras melihat, badanku kuat bergetar. Hingga akhirnya aku merasakan pagi menunjukku dengan secercah sinar. Hanya mimpi. Isi. Lantas aku meraba wajahku dan memastikan anggota tubuhku satu persatu. Ibu tak lagi di dapur. Ayah baru saja tertidur. Mataku masih sedikit blur, mencoba mengobati hati yang kurasa semakin bengkak membiru. Hari ini dunia terasa sepi. Banyak orang berbicara, tapi tak bersuara sama sekali. Huru hara yang menjadi-jadi, tapi aku tak melihat bola dari semua kekacauan ini.
Wow, what a well-entertained performances from Lars and Silden and Teapus. We hope everyone is satisfied. Special mention to Al Buruj, one of the best catering service that you can find in Jogja, to the best chicken surf restaurant with its special spices, Ayam Suharti, to RWAD that provides us a place to grow as a remote workers, to Bank BPD that will ensure the safety of your money with good management system, and last but not least, one of the best computer seller marketplace, MKS Computer, for all their support and help that ensure the smoothness running of this event. Now, for you almost have been waiting, now it's the time for us to announce the result of today's debate. And I have to say once again, all of you did amazing. So don't be too disappointed if your team hasn't got the opportunity to win the PUSDEC of 2023. And for the announcement, I would likely to give the stage to our core adjudicator, Ms. Rosa. Time and place is yours.
Okay. Hello, am I visible and audible? Okay, I'm assuming that I am. Maybe I need to open this fold so I have better light. Okay, so everyone, my name is Rosa. I am the core adjudicator of this competition. And yeah, I would like to do the one last thing, that is announcing the winner. I hope everyone is here, especially those who attend the grand final. Okay, so without further ado, let me share my screen. Okay, so welcome to PUSDEC winning announcement. Today is Sunday, July 23rd, 2023. On my end, it's a very rainy weekend, but I hope on your end it's a beautiful day. But before we proceed into the announcement, I would like to thank everyone for your hard work and enthusiasm in the competition. Whatever your debating story journeys might be, whatever struggle you have to go through, Tiger training, coaching, I hope you know that your effort have not gone unnoticed. I hope that you continue your pursuit of learning, moving forward in life. I hope you will find the fulfillment that you're looking for one day, maybe in this competition, if not in other competition, maybe even in other part of life. I don't know. But yeah, just some like words of not words of affirmation, but like just, like some praises that I think has been long overdue and you so deserve. All right. So second runner up, first things first, announcing congratulations. SMA Negeri 1 Kupang, with a semi-final total speaker score of 801 and a margin of 9. Yay! So semi-final total speaker score here, because remember the regulation, we decide the second runner-up based on speaker score, and this is the result of that. So congratulations, SMA Negeri 1 Kupang. Oh, from here onwards, we're also gonna go from bottoms up, okay? So we're gonna announce the champion and the best speaker last. Next, first runner-up, congratulations. We're bad at naming things with a average grand final speaker score of 802 and an average margin of, oh no, Jason the Tiber has not written it. But yeah, I guess we will write that down next. Sorry for this technical mistake. Okay, now therefore that makes the champion. Congratulations, homeless kiddos, with a grand final total speaker score of 814.5 and a average margin of 4. So that means the margin for this is -4. All right, yay, thank you, congratulations, commiseration. Next, we're gonna go to the best speaker category. First, best speaker, overall best speaker, congratulations, Wilson Wijaya, last comp we swear, with a total preliminary round speaker score of 309 and average prelim speaker score of 77.25. That's high. Congratulations, Wilson Wijaya. Okay, next. Grand final best speaker goes to Ezekiel Vito. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Sorry if I butchered that. From the team Homeless Kiddos with an average grand final speaker score of 78. That's also very high. Congratulations. Yay. And that is it. Thank you for participating, everyone, and see you in PUSDEC 2024. Yay.
Thank you, Ms. Nahdatu Rashada, for announcing the winner of PUSDEC 2023. And thank you again for your attendance here today. Congratulations to the winning team of PUSDEC 2023 Homeless Kiddos. Okay. We really hope that you will find a fabulous and remarkable journey from today's debate. I also want to add I want to thank the debaters for making this event as great as it is right now. I also want to thank our core adjudicator, Ms. Rosa, and all of the adjudicators for their help and judges to make this event successful. And lastly, to the committee, thank you to the committee of PUSDEC 2023 for making this event remarks amazing. I am La Luna as your MC, truly happy to have guided all of you in this grand event. See you in the next PUSDEC. Goodbye and have a great day, everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.